Good afternoon, Refuge. Welcome today. I hope that you guys are having a great day. I am here in the service, but I decided to record my message because if you guys have been paying any attention, you know that my internet here at my house is crazy. It's subject to just cut off or freeze or the sound will go out or something like that. So I didn't want to take any chances. So I decided to record. So here it is. I will be talking about Sarah on today. We've been in the series of Sarah since the beginning of July, and we kind of touched on her a little bit in June when we spoke about Abraham. So I'm hoping that you guys can get something today out of something that I say and that it's able to bless your life. So let's get started. So there's this cooking show that I like to watch. It's kind of a funny type comedy cooking show, but it's called Nailed It. I don't know how many of you have ever seen it, but it's basically where these amateur bakers have to come on the show and recreate a professionally made dessert, whether it's a cake or some kind of fruit item or whatever it is. They have to recreate the way it looks. And so these bakers are just everyday people like you and I. They've only probably cooked in their kitchen. They've never done anything professional. And so the creations that they make turn out to be a complete disaster. It looks nothing like what the professional bakes. It's pretty funny. I just laugh at it every time. But I want to show you guys just a short clip of how their creations kind of turn out in the end or whatever. So we'll take a look at that real fast.
We call this challenge Nail It or Fail It. And this is the one that could win you $10,000.
That first round was all about those ghostly beings. Well, now we move up to the big guy, the star of the story. He who learned to right his wrongs. We'll see both the faces of this man when you make
The Scrooge face cake.
Oh, no.
Yes, it's a fully realized cake bust of Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge. Here you see the face of a measly miser and covetous sinner. But spin his head exorcist style, and we get the other side of Scrooge.
Scrooge's head with two faces is shaped with modeling chocolates. His torso is made of trifle. That's a vanilla cake with whipped cream and strawberry. His pajamas are made with fondant.
What do you think, bakers?
Got this.
Really? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Looks like a mess.
Flora, let's remember the two-faced Scrooge cake you were trying to make, and let's see what you made.
Nailed it.
Whoa!
Flora, what have you done?
Flora!
He got a 10.
Spin it.
yeah, it's a two-sider.
It got better! Yeah!
Hey!
Yeah!
Whoa!
Yeah!
Hey! I would like to.
Let's go!
Doodly-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
All right, Richard.
Hello.
You look so happy.
I always happy.
All right, Richard, let's see what you made.
Nailed it.
Okay.
You know what?
Okay.
He doesn't have a net. Can we spin him?
Oh, I don't like that.
All right, my friend Justin. Now let's see the two-faced Scrooge cake you made. Nailed it. Oh, Scooter Bow!
So I know you guys are probably wondering, what does Nailed It have to do with Sarah, which is who we're studying this month. Nailed It reminded me of how life can be sometimes. We make plans for life and we may have a list of directions that will get us to where we want to be. It's all written out. Our plan is straightforward and to the point. And based on our plans, life should be a piece of cake. But just like these amateur bakers, most often life doesn't turn out the way we imagined it or expected it. We are amateurs at trying to figure out something as complicated as life. But God is the master creator, and He has a plan for our lives. And even if that plan is different than what we imagine, we can be confident that He's the professional who knows what He's doing. He sees our end along with our beginning, even if His timing doesn't match up with ours, as in Sarah's case. We can trust that He will nail it. We don't have a lot of details about Sarah. The most that we know of her in Genesis is that she's married to Abraham. She's barren, but she desperately wants a child, so much so that she gives her maiden Hagar to her husband in order to get rid of her shame and her pain. We know that she struggles in her faith with God, just like we do. So to me, she's a person just like us. I begin to actually imagine what her life was like, or what she was like prior to when we are introduced to her in Genesis. I imagine that she's just like me. She has some plans for her life. She knows how she wants her life to turn out to be. At this point, she doesn't even know that she's barren. So she's either married to Abraham, or she's getting ready to be married. She's happy. She marries him, and then she realizes that she can't have a child because she's barren. But I imagine that this is probably how she would have envisioned her life to be prior to knowing that she's actually barren. However, we know that Sarah's life does not turn out that way. An unexpected kink gets thrown into Sarah's plans, and her reality is that she is barren. I looked up the word barren in the dictionary, and of course, it lists the word childless, but it also listed the words unproductive, unfruitful, ineffective, and a waste. Those words helped me to imagine the emptiness Sarah must have felt. She probably felt unfulfilled and disappointed. And as a woman in that time, she may have even felt like a waste because her barrenness threatened her very identity as a woman. It was very important for a woman to be able to produce an heir. And for years, Sarah's expectations of being a mother was not met, and her reality looked more like this. It was not nailing it. I wish I could say that I had the answers to why God took so long to bless Sarah, or to why he operates the way he does, but I don't. Like Sarah, myself, I have some things that I've been waiting on God for, and seemingly he's withholding good things from me. My life has definitely not gone the way I thought it would, and no lie, I've been discouraged in waiting. I've worried while waiting. I've been at the point of giving up while waiting. I've even tried making my own way, but I found out that it doesn't work and none of it is helpful. But despite all that, I learned a few things while waiting, and it has become something that I'm able to go back to when worry or disappointment try to come around. So here are a few things that I've learned. Lesson number 1, God's ways are just not our ways. I believe that it's safe to say that we all have at least one thing that we've been waiting on God and praying to God to fix. We've all been in Sarah's shoes, and you may be there right now. I have prayers that I've been asking God for a long time. And when you wait that long, disappointment, shame, frustration, and anger, they can all set in. It can even drive you to ask questions of God or to try to make your own way. And if you're not careful, your desire can be so deep that it actually can push you away from God when you ask the question, God, if you're such a good, loving God, and you'll give us the desires of our heart, and what I'm desiring is something good, why are you withholding from me? But one day as I was crying out to God, my why got why and my when got when, God asked me a question. Do you want me to answer your request just so you can feel comfort, so you don't have to suffer, so you don't have to feel the pain that you're having to endure? And I heard God say, me not answering your prayer is not really about you. In other words, God isn't leaving us where we are just so he can see us suffer, or because he's really not who we thought he was, but he's really an unloving God. But we must realize that unfortunately, pain is sometimes involved in the process of God's perfect will being fulfilled. Sarah's desire for a baby was delayed for decades because God had a plan far greater than just Sarah's desire to be a mother. Because I believe not only was Sarah's life and faith completely changed, Abraham's life and faith was completely changed through God's timing. But generations to come would be changed as well. and we are included in those generations. Isaiah 55, 8 through 9 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." So Jesus cares more about building character and making changes in people through their reality rather than just trying to make their story neat and perfect. If he aligned our life based on our expectations and based on what the world norm is or what your family thinks you should have, perhaps you would not experience true heart changes. So an unanswered prayer doesn't mean God isn't listening. Sometimes God just means for us to wait. Sometimes we should seek another direction. Sometimes what we think is good isn't good. And sometimes we just won't know the answer to this question because God is God and we're not. And we don't understand his timing and we don't understand his ways. But we can be confident in the fact that God is working out a plan far greater than what we can ever imagine or ask for. Lesson number 2, don't worry over things you have no control over. Sarah couldn't change the fact that she was barren, no matter how badly she wanted it or how long she waited. Only God could make her whole. There are some things in our lives that we just have no control over. We can't save the loved ones that we've been praying for to be saved. We can't heal our loved one from cancer. We can't make someone forgive us. We can't make someone love us. Only God can do those things. Luke 12, 25 and 26 says, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest?" So instead of worrying over the things that we can't control, we give those things to God, and we control the way that we respond to our situation. We look to the hills from where our help comes from where our strength comes from, and from where our joy comes from. My grandmother was a very strong woman, and she endured a lot of things during her 93 years of life. She was in an abusive marriage, a very abusive marriage, before she married my grandfather. She raised several of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren for different reasons. She buried 4 of her 7 children and her husband before herself passing away from Alzheimer's disease. She endured some tough things, but through all of that, she kept her eyes fixed on God. She would say, "It's in the hands of God." And even in her days of Alzheimer's, when she couldn't remember who any of us were, she'd sing these 2 songs. "That's the kind of God that I serve," and "Praise my way through." So even though her life, I'm sure, didn't turn out the way she had planned it, she still shaped a legacy of faith and not shame. And that legacy will last for generations to come, all because she chose not to worry over the parts of her life that she couldn't control. She enjoyed the good days, and she remained faithful to God. So what can we learn from her life? Leave the worry behind and begin living in appreciation of what God has already blessed us with. We shouldn't let our unanswered expectations rob us of fully appreciating how far God has brought us, and most importantly, the eternal life he has waiting for us. Lesson number 3, don't worry yourself over all of the little details. So what do I mean by that? Proverbs 16 and 3 says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." And Proverbs 16 and 9 says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." So a man can plan in his heart how he wants his life to be and how he feels that his life is going to turn out. But God is the one who establishes his steps. He's the one who brings it all to pass. So there's really no need in us worrying about all of the little details because we have no control over that. When I worry about the details of my life and how God will fix it or when he will fix it, that's when I tend to try to step in and make my own way. When Sarah couldn't see the possibility of herself being able to have a child, and she didn't know that God was going to fix it, that's when she decided to make her own way, and she brought Hagar into the mix. And we all see how that turned out, a mess. So sometimes when we begin to worry in the same way, we bring in our own methods and operations and we make a mess. I know it's hard for us to let go of control of our lives. It's hard for me. I'm a planner by nature. I live by notepads and checklists. I like to see all the details. I want to know when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. Give me all the details with no surprises. But unfortunately, life doesn't work like that. And most often, God doesn't work like that either. I had to learn that when the details are missing, that's when I allow my faith to take action and depend on God for help. We commit our desires to God and let Him initiate our plans and bring those things to pass His way and according to His purpose. He orders the events and sometimes directs our steps to a way we least expect it. The who, what, when, where, and how is up to Him. So even if our plans fail or if what we desired is not part of His will, His purpose is still accomplished. And even when it seems like a hopeless situation, as in Sarah's case, we can choose to leave all the details to God. In the end, we will get to say, God, nailed it. Lesson number 4. Pray to find joy in the midst of disappointment and sorrow. So this is one of the best lessons that I could have learned for my life. I spent so many years worrying, so many years being depressed, so many years being disappointed. When I look back over parts of my life, I feel almost like I was asleep during those times until I just got tired of it. And I was just thinking, I want joy for my life. So even though I was still in the situation that I was in, or God hadn't answered my prayers that I wanted, I still decided that I wanted joy and I wanted to seek joy. A couple of weeks ago, the Daily Woman's Devotional that came gave such a great explanation of this. So I decided to just share that. It didn't come in a video form, so I am going to have to actually read it. But the devotional was by Lisa Turkhurst, and the scripture reading is from James 1:2-4. The devotional said this.
There's no part of me that wants sorrow to be included in my journey or yours. And honestly, there isn't any plan God could present where I would willingly agree to heartbreak and pain. But the longer I walk with the Lord, the more I see that picking and choosing what gets to be part of our stories would keep us from the ultimate good God has in mind. If that seems hard to fathom in the midst of our own difficult circumstance today, I want to share some verses found in James that have helped me in my hardest seasons. I have to warn you, it might not feel good at first glance. James 1 verses 2-4 reminds us, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." I confess, I like these verses. Well, until I don't. What about those things we walk through that hurt too long, or disappoint too deeply, or feel devastatingly permanent? To slap some, we should be joyful about this on top of the hard things feels cruel. Like a bad joke about something excruciatingly painful. It's just too soon. That's why I'm glad these verses don't say feel the joy, but instead, consider where some glimpses of joy might be, even in the midst of all the hurt. I like to think of it in terms of baking. Imagine if we decided to make a cake from scratch. After going to the store, we set out all of our ingredients: the flour, butter, sugar, vanilla, eggs, baking powder, and a pinch of salt. But then maybe we felt too tired to mix it all together and make the cake. Instead, we thought we could just enjoy the cake one ingredient at a time. But the thing is, we don't like some of the individual ingredients by themselves, so we'd rather leave some of them out, leaving our cake unmade. We are so quick to judge the reliability of God based on individual ingredients, rather than the eventual good God is working together. We must know that just like the master baker has reasons to allow all the ingredients in right measure into the recipe, God will do the same with dry times and hard times in our life. And yes, we may have to go through some chaos in the mixing and some heat in the baking, but soon we will rise and live lives that are a sweet offering of hope, grace, peace, and comfort to others. That's how we can consider it a pure joy today.
We can also make peace with the fact that sorrow and celebration can quite authentically coexist together in a heart. Mixing them together is part of the recipe of life. So we can sit with and tend to all that still needs to be healed, and at the same time laugh, plan for great things ahead, and declare this a glorious day. Let's embrace the mix of all that's worthy of celebration while fully knowing we can trust Jesus' recipe of purpose in both the pain and the joy.
So that spoke to me so heavily. We know that pain does not feel good, and I would not wish a painful event on even my enemy. But we know that pain is all a part of the process sometimes, the process to get us where we need to be. But in the midst of our pain, we can tell ourselves that God is working out a plan that will not leave us lacking. It will not leave us in shame, and the end result will be glorious. Just as labor pains produce a beautiful baby and workout pains produce a fine body, and you get the point. When we wait on God, He will far exceed our expectations. So we can count it joy in just knowing this. Well, I'm pretty much done. I would like to share one last picture with you guys of how Sarah's life actually turned out after God's will was done. So you can kind of see some similarities between the first vision and the reality. Sarah was still happy. She still had that baby. It didn't come when she wanted it, but it was right on time. So right now, what I like to do is just leave these last few minutes for us to have a personal prayer time with God. And what I would like for you to do is get in your mind, or you can write it down, whatever it is that you have been waiting on God for. I want you to ask, what are some of the expectations that you might have of God regarding what you are waiting on? Ask yourself, are there specific ways that you were expecting Him to work in this season? Are there ways that you assume He is operating? Are those expectations of God based on your own hopes, thoughts, or desires? I want you to lift that thing up to God and offer it to Him. Let Him know that you want Him to be in total control of the details, and you don't want to have to worry about the process that it takes for you to get there. Ask Him if your desire is lining up with His plans and what He wants. And then let's just have faith that God is going to work things out according to His plan. I'm going to play a little music and you guys can start then.
If I were in control of my life, I think that I would have worked things out differently. There would be no hurt, no pain, no disappointment. Of these things, my life would be scot-free. But that just goes to show how little I know about leading, about controlling my life. For you see, all these things have worked together just to make the best of me. If I were in control of my life. I think that I would have worked things out so much differently. For you see, there would be no hurt, no pain, no disappointment. Of these things, my life would be scot-free. But that just goes to show how little I know about leading, about controlling my life. For you see, all of these things have worked together just to make the best of Sean Pace Road. But God controls my life. Are in his hands, and I'm learning each and every day to trust him. Come what may. For you see, if I were in control of my life, I know that I would have worked things out much differently. But my times, all of the good and all of the bad, my times, all of the hurt and all of the pain, my times, my times are in his hand, in his hand. Yo, 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 yo. My time. Thank you, Father. Are in his hand. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord.